people with Forrest Wilson. And now, here is Forrest Wilson.
Hello and welcome to The Resistance, Forrest Wilson. I'm your host. Thank you for tuning in. If you want to call in and leave your information with Jack, we won't stalk you. We'll just send you some freedom documents. It's a book entitled Dynamic Freedoms, and it's got some great documents in there. It's got the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Magna Carta, some of the Old English law, excerpts from George Washington's farewell address. And you can keep this with you and refer to it, especially if you're having an argument with a liberal. Okay, so I've been checking the Department of Homeland Security's NTAS website for any change in the terror threat level in light of the revelations of the past week. Hundreds, if not thousands, the government's not sure, but hundreds, if not thousands, of American passport holders have joined up with ISIS to fight in Syria and Iraq. Then I see in some media outlets that they're picking up on this alert that I gave to you last week from Judicial Watch, that an attack on our southern border is imminent. Now, 9/11 is Thursday. That's the anniversary of the attack on the World Trade Centers. Now the attack on our embassy in Benghazi, our consulate in Benghazi. And I'm going to give this to you again just for what it's worth. Intelligence officials have picked up radio talk and chatter indicating that terrorist groups are going to carry out an attack on the border, the southern border, according to a Judicial Watch source. An attack is so imminent that the commanding general at Fort Bliss, the U.S. Army post in El Paso, is being briefed. So, I'm looking at this NTAS website in light of all these things, including this alert from Judicial Watch, and there's been an update to the National Terrorism Advisory System run by the Department of Homeland Security. I mean, finally, as this anniversary approaches next Thursday, there's this change. And let me give it to you. I'm going to give it to you, but I want you to pay very close attention. After all, you're paying dearly through the tax system for this DHS website and the folks charged to keep it up. And this may be a matter of safety for you and your family. They've updated the last published date. That's right. That's it. They've updated the last published date. There are no current alerts. There's no terror or terrorism threat alerts on the NTAS website. Just the update to the date. The last published date, to be exact, has been updated from September 5th, 2013 to September 5th, 2014. And no, it's not a joke. And no, I'm not kidding. This is real. There are no current alerts, just a one-digit change in the publish, or rather the last published date. A one-digit change. 3 to 4. But look, I've got every bit of confidence in the DHS employees, the rank and file. Many of these men and women are on the front lines in harm's way, helping to keep this country safe. I thank them. This is really a failure of leadership. They should have alerted us to at least be on the lookout for possible terrorist activity in this country and what we can do to help keep our families and our communities safe. But I really think this is a failure of the leadership of DHS from Jay Johnson, the DHS secretary, which, by the way, this is a cabinet-level position, and I believe that some of this is coming from the highest levels of the administration. I mean, we don't have an effective government anymore. It's really being run by community organizers and activists, funded largely, not entirely, but largely by unions. You know, they give 90% of their donations to Democrats and Democrat candidates. About 10% go to Republicans and Republican candidates. I mean, where's the fairness in that? You know, it's all about fairness, right? Why don't they split it up? But they're endangering the American public, I believe, and I guess it's a full-time job fundamentally changing America and the liberty we once enjoyed. I guess they're too busy to be bothered with constitutional mandates like national security. No. They're more concerned with health care mandates and all manner of other type of regulatory mandates. And then we have this clip on Labor Day from the president. I want you to listen closely to it. It's real short.
For the moon, I just want a good deal for American workers.
A good deal for American workers would be to reduce the corporate tax rate in this country, one of the highest corporate tax rates in the world at 35%. If they reduce that, number one, it would bring some of these corporations that have relocated out of the country back to the country, and perhaps give American workers a better shot at a fair wage in their estimation. But to them, there's no such thing as an unfair tax. All taxes are good. But you've got these American workers, and are they really better off today than they were in 2008? I mean, I'm looking at a report here that there are 92 million, almost 93 million fewer people in the labor force today, and we've got a participation rate that matches a 36-year low. I mean, close to 93 million people are out of the labor force. This is, in a politician's words, well, this is unsustainable. Well, they really need to stop what they're doing with the regulations and the taxes. It's killing the country. But do you like expensive fast food? Because I think we're going to get it, courtesy of SEIU. In the past couple of days, there have been protests all over the country about raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. And this is from MyFox New York. Hundreds of workers from McDonald's, Taco Bell, Wendy's, and other fast food chains walked off their jobs Thursday in New York City. Labor organizers announced the protests would take place as part of the latest national push to get these companies to pay their employees at least $15 an hour. The Fight for $15 campaign, which is backed financially by the Service Employees International Union and others, has gained national attention at a time when the wage gap between the poor and the rich has become a hot political issue. The campaign started in New York City in November 2012 with 200 fast food workers walking off their jobs, demanding $15 an hour and the right to form a union without retaliation. Well, my next guest has some experience with SEIU, otherwise known as the Service Employees International Union. David Bego is the author of The Devil at My Doorstep. He's also president and CEO of Executive Management Services, and he's one of the leading experts on the Employee Free Choice Act, otherwise known as Card Check, and union political activities. David, welcome to the Resistance.
Well, thanks, Wilson. Thanks for having me on. And just to let you know and update you, I have another book, too, The Devil at Our Doorstep, and which includes my first book, but it goes further in talking about the political problems and corruption that the unions bring about, and talks about stories of other employees across the country that have been abused by the union bosses.
And you had quite a fight with SEIU. Tell me about that fight, when it started, and what it's centered around. Now, you've got about 5,000 employees, and just to give the audience a little background, you're in the commercial cleaning business, and you started this business about 20 years ago, worked your tail off to build it, and along comes SEIU on about 2006. Tell me what happened next.
Well, yeah, you're right. We started in 1989, and we're just 25 years old this year, and we always tried to do the right thing. We tried to pay above industry standard wages, and back in the late 90s, we started offering health care and other benefits, which a lot of companies in our industry don't offer. And in 2006, the SEIU, when Andy Stern was president of the union, had what they called a corporate campaign, and what that is for is it's a business model, and they look at a certain area of the country. In this case, it was Indiana, Ohio, and into Pennsylvania and Illinois, and a little bit into Missouri. And what they want to do is force unionize all the cleaning companies in this area, and they want you to sign what's called a neutrality agreement. And that agreement eliminates the secret ballot election for people to decide if they want to be union, and goes to card check, okay? And to supplement that, when you sign the agreement, you have to provide them a list of all your employees and their home addresses so the union can send people to these people's homes and intimidate them into signing union cards. They get a bare majority and you're automatically union.
And this was before they introduced the card check legislation, otherwise known as the Employee Free Choice Act. I think that was in about 2007, correct?
2007, 2008, it was on the docket for a couple of years, and I was involved with a lot of people, spent a lot of time in Washington getting that defeated. And because, they say, of course, they always they give you this flowery title that sounds very good, Employee Free Choice Act, and it's everything but that. Because what it really does is gives the union the opportunity to go into these people's homes, and they'll send bullies in there, and they'll intimidate them and threaten them until they sign the cards. And that's what they don't want to tell the American public about. And we know it happens. We've seen it. We've seen it happen with other companies across the country. And it's just a result of the unions. They're dinosaurs, and they are very, very desperate, and they'll do anything to bring in new members.
Well, David, I got to take a short break. I want to hold you over, and we're going to talk about that, some of the statistics as it pertains to these unions and some of the tactics that they used against your organization. You're listening to The Resistance, Forrest Wilson, AM 600 and FM 100.3. We'll be right back.
Let's return to We the People with Forrest Wilson. Once again, here's Forrest.
And we're back with my guest, David Bego, the author of The Devil at My Doorstep and the new book, The Devil at Our Doorstep. David, I noticed that the ranks of the union membership has really changed by about half since they started keeping statistics back in '83. In fact, it's right around 11% today is the union membership rate, and it was as high as 20%. So I can understand why they wanted to go out and seek new members and new industries. But tell me some of the tactics that they used against you and your company.
Oh yeah, Forrest, it's interesting. Actually in the private sector, it's about 6%. Of the workforce, and it used to be actually, I think back in the 40s, about 30-35%. But what they did, when I refused to sign the neutrality agreement, I was the only major cleaning company that refused to sign it. All the rest of them signed it and allowed their people to be forced unionized. And they looked at me across the table and they said, we enjoy conversation, but we'll push confrontation, and we're going to attack you, your employees, your customers, and everybody associated with you. And they did. And force, they used clergy people against us. They used politicians against us. They used the press against us. They used little kids in my neighborhood in Halloween against us. And, like the little kids on Halloween, they came and got candy at all my neighbors' houses, and as they got their candy, they would hand our neighbors these flyers that said House of Horrors, buildings cleaned by EMS. People were abused and mistreated, forced to use hazardous chemicals and dangerous equipment, and then they had union thugs driving up and down the street. And, of course, our neighbors were terrified. And they used clergy people at buildings we cleaned to do sit-ins and block the doors so that close the buildings down. And they did mass demonstrations in downtown Indianapolis on the Circle. Kind of, if you remember what Wisconsin looked like when they were boycotting against Governor Walker up there. And same type of thing here. And we had a 4-year battle with them, and we turned the tide, and we beat them here in Indiana and then in Washington. And I had to write the books to expose them because they're not for the American people. They're not for employees. It's all about union dues to line their own pockets and for their political agenda.
Yes, and I would have to agree with that. Now, that cost you quite a bit of money. How's your corporation doing today?
Well, we're doing fine. We came through it. It did cost us a lot of money, not just for attorney fees, but then our own in-house time it took away from taking care of business and doing things. And they, for the most part, leave us alone today. And but I'll tell you one of the things that's hurting us. And you kind of, when I was listening to some of your opening remarks when I came on, is you're talking about the open borders. and I wrote a blog about this a few weeks ago, is it's not just kids coming across, and it's not just terrorists. There's a lot of adults coming across that need jobs and money. And unfortunately, we've got a lot of businesses across the country that are hiring these people, the undocumented workers, and paying them under the table. And legitimate corporations like us are trying to do things the right way. We can't compete. And we've lost a couple of big accounts over the past month or two because of this type of thing.
What about your competitors and the other companies in your industry that unionized? How did they fare?
A lot of them, it's interesting when you look at those type of things, is I had a lot of them come to me and they said they wish they'd have stood up and fought with me. Because actually our wages are better than the union wages in most places we're in, and our health care and that is just as good or better. So they weren't put at a disadvantage of that. But what they were at a disadvantage is they had the union tag on them, and in some cases, in many cases, productivity went down because of union rules and stuff like that, and that hurt them.
Well, I've run a business, not 5,000 employees. I had a business with 50 employees, but I couldn't imagine having to deal with another layer in between my management and my employees. That would just make for very difficult management circumstances.
Well, it does, and what people don't understand is their goal is to reduce your productivity, because how they view it is that you will have to put on more employees. If people aren't as productive. More employees means more union dues for them. And that's what this is all about. And it's, Forrest, I was naive to some of this until they attacked me. I used to run union plants, feed mills, and soybean processing plants, and I saw some of that going on then, back in the 80s. But it's so much worse today because the unions are so desperate for membership.
Well, what advice, David, would you give to McDonald's, Taco Bell, and other fast food chains to fend off the likes of SEIU? I understand that they've spent about $15 million, at least SEIU has. There are other labor unions involved in this, for this Fight for $15 campaign. Now, I know what it's going to do. It's going to raise the price of a fast food meal. But what advice would you give to those companies?
Well, here's how we beat the SEIU. We did it a couple different ways, but one of the biggest ways we did it is we went out and I personally went out and sat down at all the buildings that were under major attack by the SEIU, and I sat down and talked to the employees about the reality of what was going on, and that the wage increases they're talking about, because they were talking about the same thing with us, doubling their wages and all that, and the truth is that never happened, okay, with the other companies they unionized. But we went out and sat down and talked to our employees, and when we sat down and talked to them about what's going on and what the real effects could be, about people being put on part-time or losing their jobs and things like that, they understood. In fact, I had a gal in Cincinnati. I had about 40 to 50 employees in the room, and I started talking about this, and she stood up. I'd say she was a mid-50s black gal, and she says, "May I speak?" And I said, "Sure." I had no idea what she was going to say, but she got up and looked around the room, and she says, "We might make double our wages in some place like New York, but the cost of living is twice as much. This company treats us well. We're paid fairly. We have benefits. We are safe. They're good people. We need to support our company." And everybody in the room except two people stood up and cheered. And they were ones that had SEIU buttons on. They were salts, okay? But that's one of the things I think Walmart's, they're being under attack too, and McDonald's and that. They have to do this. The other thing is they have to challenge the SEIU openly to debates. Because when we did that, the SEIU kind of crawled back under the rock. They don't want to debate you openly because they know that you can expose them.
Well, I don't think it's the end of SEIU by any measure. I certainly don't think that card check is dead. I think if they've got an opportunity to get that rammed through, they're going to try to bring it up again in the future. So, I guess the only thing we can do is do what you said. You got to take them on head on. And in a debate, I don't think these people would have a chance because all of the issues of unionization in today's world, in today's environment. It just doesn't make sense.
Well, no, it doesn't. And, I challenged an open debates in Cincinnati. First they said okay, and then when it drew close for the debate in front of the city council down there, they said, no, we're going to back out, and we're not going to oppose any of these things anymore that they were opposing. And it's sad. And as far as card check, here's the real concern. They're not going to try and get it passed legislatively. With the president's help, they're trying to get it done through the National Labor Relations Board by changing different regulations and overturning past decisions so that they can bring card check in and eliminate the secret ballot election. And that's what people have to be really concerned about and have to stay on top of and fight.
David Bego, thank you so much for your time today. And if you would like to check out David's book, it's The Devil at Our Doorstep. And thank you again for your time, David.
Well, thank you, and please have me on anytime, because I'm doing this to help employers and employees. Just one last statement. I have employees in my book that I talk about that are now upset about the union. They're fighting them across the country because they don't want their dues used for political purposes and other things, and it's interesting to see them fighting back.
90% go to Democrat candidates of these union dues that they collect for political campaigns. 90%.
Yep.
And only 10% to Republican candidates. Again, David, thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you, and you have a great day.
You too. Well, there you have it. SEIU attempting to shake down David Bego and his company, Executive Management Services, but he stood up and he fought back against the thugs. And I'm sure that had something to do with the defeat of Card Check. I hope you'll stay tuned. Our next guest has got a new song that I think you'll be interested in, and certainly you'll be interested in the guest. In fact, who's part of Buffalo Springfield. I'll be right back. AM 600, FM 100.3. You're listening to The Resistance. Forrest Wilson.
With a gun over there.
Let's return to We the People with Forrest Wilson. Once again, here's Forrest.
Saw a man walk away from love with a broken heart. Where did he go? He wouldn't say. All I know is I felt his pain.
And we're back with on The Resistance, Forrest Wilson. My next guest, that's part of the song, Don't Tread on Me. My next guest, Richie Furay, is a rock and roll Hall of Famer, a veteran of Buffalo Springfield, Poco, Souther Hillman Furay, and other successful bands. And he's released a new song he describes as a wake-up call to America. Richie, welcome to The Resistance.
Wilson, thank you so much, man. Glad to be on the air with you, man. Thank you.
Oh, listen, your music literally was a soundtrack of my life. I grew up in the 60s and the 70s, and big fan of Poco, certainly a big fan of Buffalo Springfield.
Sure.
And this song, though, is, it's beautiful, but it's also somewhat disturbing. What inspired you to write Don't Tread on Me?
Well, I tell you what, when you look at my history of songwriting, I'm probably known most for love songs. And maybe I wrote this one as a love song, too, just didn't know it because it was a love for my country, that I feel is slowly but surely just slipping away from who we are and should be. And it came from just many long walks on a road out here near my house, and all these thoughts, just basically little vignettes, would start to come to mind, and it just kind of developed into this song. But I think really it came out of having a love for this country, and I'm just seeing the polarization, the division that's in our country, and it's just it just hurts me,
Well, it does me too. We started this program literally 4 years ago, and it was out of a love for country. That's literally the only reason we do it. Certainly not for the money. There's not any money involved. But you believe that the polarization is a big part of it.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Where do you fall in that polarization? What are your politics, Richie?
Well, I'm a conservative that believes in the Constitution of the United States of America. It worked for us for how many years, and why are we trying to either avoid it or change it now? It's worked for this country for so long. What's wrong with it? But people are just. I guess the progressive movement, if you will, trying to find something wrong with it, and I just can't see why they're doing that.
Yeah, and neither can I nor many in our audience. I want to go ahead and play the song all the way through, and then we'll come back and talk about your motivations and where you are now and where you've been.
Cool. That sounds good.
Excellent. Okay, Jack, let's hit it.
Walk away from love with a broken heart. Where did he go? He wouldn't say. All I know is I felt his pain as he left that day. He just wandered away. Said he couldn't stay, not another day. Caught my ear. Could I believe what I heard? Not a chance, not a word. I just can't understand how we lost our way. Ain't ashamed to say, born in the USA, we're the home of the brave, we're the land of the free. Got a heart of gold, don't tread on me. With our head held high for the world to see. We're the home of the brave, don't tread on me. Don't tread on me. you can see. Yeah, you know what I mean. Don't pretend you're naive. The writing on the wall is written just as plain as day. If we continue this way, you know what they say, you wanna play, you're gonna pay. Mockers will come, you can count on this, I know. It's just how it is. It's just how it goes. But my heart bleeds red, white, and blue as I recall. United we stand, divided we fall. We're the home of the brave, we're the land of the free. We got a heart of gold, don't tread on me. With our head held high for the world to see. We're the home of the brave, don't tread on me. We're the home of the brave, we're the land of the free. We got a heart of gold, don't tread on me. With our head held high for the world to see. We're the home of the brave, don't tread on me. Don't tread on me. Don't tread on me.
Wow, that was fantastic. Richard, you know, you sound a lot like the lead singer of Poco.
I wonder why.
Well, what's amazing is you sound almost like you did, 40 years ago. You really do sound the same.
Well, I tell you, that's God's grace.
Well, we got to take a break. That's a fantastic song. When we get back, I want to talk to you about Buffalo Springfield, how you became a pastor, and all the other wonderful things that are going on in your life, my brother.
Good, thank you.
We'll be right back. We're talking to Richie Furay, Buffalo Springfield, Poco, and some other great bands. AM 600, FM 100.3. The Answer. You're listening to The Resistance. Forrest Wilson. We'll be right back.
Now, my girl, you're so young and pretty.
Let's return to We the People with Forrest Wilson. Once again, here's Forrest.
And we're back with my guest, Richie Furay, Rock and Roll Hall of Famer, veteran of Buffalo Springfield, Poco, Souther, Hillman, Furay, and other successful bands. You got a calling at some point in your life. I mean, here you are, a big rock and roll star, and what happened?
Well, I certainly wasn't looking in the direction that I was to go. We were actually putting together the Souther, Hillman, Furay band, and Chris Hillman wanted a guy named Al Perkins who played in the Burrito Brothers with him and in Manassas, and I told Chris, no, I don't want this guy in the band. This guy's got a fish on his guitar and says Jesus is Lord, and I don't want to have anything to do with this guy. And Chris obviously, pursued it, and Al ended up being in our band, and some certain things personally were happening in my life, and next thing I know, Al Perkins is leading me to the Lord, and it was a change that I obviously wasn't looking for, but I just admired Al's life and his lifestyle and saw, how he maintained himself in the world of rock and roll, and it kind of touched me, and again, I was starting to go through some things in my life that I had no idea were coming down. My wife and I had been married for 7 years, and we were, I had no knowledge of it, but we were on the verge of a 7-month separation, and it was, I guess the timing in my life, that Al would come into it and really share Jesus with me, and the next thing I know, Nancy and I got 47 years under our belt now, but it was just a journey, it was nothing I was looking for, Wilson. The Lord just kind of knocked on my door, and I resisted him for a while, and then just said, yes, I think this is the way for me to go, and realized, that I needed help, and I needed eternal help, and so I asked Jesus to be my Lord and Savior. Next thing you know, I'm pastoring a little church out here in Colorado.
But you've been a pastor for 3 decades.
I know, man. It's like we had our 25th, 10 years ago now or so, and I can't even believe that much time has passed by. You know what's neat, though? And it's like the Bible says, that the Lord will give you the desires of your heart. And I didn't know I wanted to be a servant of the Lord in the way of pastoring a church and all. But you know what? He never takes something away. And I thought I was done with music. I thought my whole musical career was done. And when I became a pastor, and that wasn't it at all, but I did step back from the music for probably about 10 years, and then all of a sudden I started writing a few worship CDs, one called In My Father's House, another one called I Am Sure, and then I started writing some more secular music from my album called Heartbeat of Love. And, the Lord still once you have those gifts, the Lord just uses them, and I hope He's going to use this new music that I've created, on this new CD project that will be coming out around Valentine's Day, I guess called Hand in Hand, which Don't Tread on Me is a part of.
Well, I know you've gotten some reaction. What's been the reaction from, past members of Buffalo Springfield?
I have not heard from Stephen or Neil on this song. Neil's got himself in some things he's preoccupied with, I think, at this point in time, and I haven't really talked to Stephen. Actually, nobody has contacted me about this. This is kind of, the genesis of it. It's just getting started now, but I'm sure there will be some reaction. I think we stand on different sides of the aisle here, as far as, we shouldn't, because I don't want to think of this song necessarily as a political song as I want to think of a patriotic song, and, but I suppose, when they hear it, they'll have some opinion about it.
Well, yeah, absolutely. It makes a strong statement, that's for sure. And, I'm glad you put it out.
Thank you.
It's interesting because I came across it in WorldNet Daily. I read that quite a bit.
Yep.
And one of our bump songs is For What It's Worth. It's a great tune. Just love it. And that song was written at a time when there were some protests going on, and I think a lot of people think it was about something that happened at Kent State, but it's really not, is it? What was that?
That song actually happened way before Kent State. For Dead in Ohio was Kent State, but what was happening was that people think that it was a Vietnam protest song. It wasn't that either. Stephen was coming home from the whiskey where we were playing, and there was a club there on the corner, it's like a little triangle in Los Angeles of Crescent Heights and Laurel Canyon and Sunset Boulevard. There was a little club there called Pandora's Box where a lot of kids were gathering and congregating, and for whatever reason, the police thought that it was a hazard right there at that main intersection, and so they were trying to shut it down. And Stephen just wrote the song from an observance of what what he saw happening there. There's something happening here. What it isn't exactly clear, and he went on from there. And so it was really about that, the protest of shutting down this little club called Pandora's Box.
And, in the rock and roll world, where would you say people fall in the political spectrum? Not everybody's a progressive.
Not everybody, but I'd say, the majority of the people are. I mean, they're I think they are to the left of center, if you would.
I'm struck by the progressive movement and how people fall into it and why they fall into it. I mean, I guess at some point in my life I was probably a liberal, but I never identified with some of the tenets of progressivism.
Right.
I certainly believe we got to take care of our poor, our elderly.
Sure,
give people an opportunity when it's needed, but some of this other stuff, it just borderlines, the things that they were fighting against in Vietnam, communism.
And that's what's so, confusing, I think, and it's a movement that's just very patient. They've waited. I don't know if you've seen a film called, it's actually a video called The Agenda by a guy named Curtis Bowers. You want to see that. If you haven't seen it, you want to take a look at that. It's pretty amazing.
Well, we got a website, so I'm going to put The Agenda up there. I'm going to go take a look at it. And
you definitely, because it documents from the middle 1800s all the way through to where we are today, where the progressive movement has come from, and where it's eventually going to end up if we don't wake up.
Yeah, no doubt. We can see the effects. I mean, we've got an open border. And fine, let's figure out a way to help people immigrate here legally.
Yeah.
But you got to control the border. You've got people that want to kill us coming across that border.
We do not know who's coming across our border at this point in time, and this, I'll tell you what, this society right now today, world society, is volatile. And we're vulnerable. We are very vulnerable today. And, we do. We need, before we can help others anymore, we need to really protect ourselves here. And so it's something we need to watch out for.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the Department of Homeland Security, I look at their website looking for some type of security alert on what's happening on the border, and there really hasn't been. The last time that they updated their site, and I've been following it, was September 5th, 2013, and then I go on it today because I kind of update people on what's going on as far as the site is concerned. And they updated it to September 5th, 2014. But there's no mention of any type of terrorist threat or terrorism threat. Last week we had the United Kingdom raising their threat level to 1 point below their highest threat level. And there's been no mention of this in our country. And we're coming up on 9/11. I mean, how does that strike you?
It's scary.
And what's the point of it? Isn't that one of the most important things our government is supposed to be doing? National security, national defense?
I would think so. And I mean, look what happened 2 years ago over in Libya around the same time.
Exactly.
But we need to take care of we need to take care of our homeland. And I mean, God gave us the greatest country in the world. And, I feel like from a pastor's perspective and all, that, and I know my citizenship is not, on earth, but it's in heaven. And, I've had people complain, well, don't look so horizontal, you got to look vertical, but I think we need to be practical about what's going on at the same time. And God has given us a great country and a great nation here, but and I want to believe that there's hope for us, but we've got to snap out of this malaise that we're in here. I mean, we got to snap out of it.
Richie, I was 45 years old. Somebody walked into my office one day and they asked me where my rights come from, and I couldn't answer the question. But they come from God.
Amen.
And listen, I really appreciate your time today. Thanks so much for the music, and thank you for coming on The Resistance.
You're welcome. If you want to visit me, they can go to richiefuray.com and just go to my my website or hit me on Facebook or whatever. And you know what? Hope we can get to meet one of these days, and be on the lookout for the whole project called Hand in Hand, okay?
I look forward, Richie. Thanks so much.
Talk to you, man.
Excellent. That was Richie Furay, and you're listening to The Resistance. We're going to close with Poco. It's a good feeling to know. I sure hope you'll tune in next week. You're listening to The Resistance. Forrest Wilson, AM 600, FM 100.3, The Answer. Thanks so much.